Hi, and welcome to Historical Influence.
Welcome to the deep dive. So we've taken this whole stack of sources you gave us.
Right, from critical academic texts on biography all the way to detailed reports on radiation contamination.
Exactly. And we are diving deep into the life and really the legacy of Marie Curie.
And she is, without a doubt, the most famous female scientist who has ever lived.
Absolutely. But we're not just here to, praise the double Nobel laureate. We want to unpack the construction of her public image.
Which is so complex and often contradictory.
It is. And we want to explore the startling and, literal persistence of her scientific work.
That's the mission today. We need to move beyond that sort of bronze statue version of Marie Curie.
Right.
We're going to analyze the strategies she used to navigate these incredibly rigid, world's elite science, global celebrity, and maybe most importantly, these entrenched gender barriers.
And we'll do that by comparing her to her male peers, like Louis Pasteur, and looking really closely at her own writing.
Especially that 1923 biography of her husband, Pierre Curie. That book is key.
And the dichotomy is it's staggering, really. It hits you right away.
It really does.
You've got the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the only person ever to win Nobels in two different scientific fields.
Physics in 1903, chemistry in 1911.
Right, and yet, and this is the shocking part, nearly a century after her death, her personal lab notes are still physically too dangerous to handle without protective clothing.
It's this haunting metaphor, isn't it? The materials themselves resist decay, just like her legacy, which is so indelible but also so contested.
Okay, let's start with her narrative, with how a life like this even gets documented. The standard science biography is, incredibly popular.
Oh, people love it. The story of the lone genius.
We do, but academia is often pretty skeptical of that whole genre because it simplifies everything, reinforces that great man idea.
And that's why historians have had to evolve. They've moved toward this critical approach called metabiography.
Metabiography, what does that mean exactly?
The idea is you treat the person not just as one static individual, but as a composite construct.
A construct built out of different memories, legal codes, public demands?
Precisely. It recognizes what the sources call the essential instability of historical lives.
Instability is a great word for it, because if you look at male celebrity scientists, someone like Louis Pasteur, you see how easily he gets distilled, generalized.
That's a perfect example. When Bruno Latour's book on him was translated into English, the title itself, The Pasteurization of France, it basically turned Pasteur into a brand.
Right, into a process.
It created a Pasteur persona, a concept for public health and industry that could be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. We as a culture just accept that Pasteur, the person, can be splintered off into this abstract idea.
So here's the question that really gets me. If a scientist's goal is to create universal knowledge, why is it so much harder to grant those same biographical possibilities to Marie Curie?
Yes, why can't we separate her, the person, from the process she represents, radioactivity?
Exactly.
And this is where we hit what scholars call the Curie loop. She remains all particular.
What do you mean by all particular?
Because her achievement was so unique for a woman at that time, observers just find it almost impossible to think about her work in abstract terms. She's always the singular exception, defined first by her gender.
So we demand this authenticity from Curie, the person, which makes it hard to separate her from Curie, the legend.
Exactly. And that perpetuates this logic that she's just a one-off, a unique exception.
So the only story she's really allowed to tell is the one about her specific individual struggle. It sort of limits her from being a catalyst for bigger observations about science itself.
It's a limitation the culture imposes, definitely not a limitation of her science. And she knew it. You can see her actively trying to break out of that loop in her own writing.
Let's talk about those limitations, because they were very, very real. Her scientific ascent with Pierre was, meteoric.
Oh, absolutely. She coined the term radioactivity.
Discovered polonium, a political statement, right?
Yeah.
Named after her native Poland.
Yes. And then radium, isolating the pure metal in 1910. These were world-changing discoveries.
And yet, you have to contrast that with the legal reality she was living under in France.
It's shocking. When they won the Nobel in 1903, the French Code Civil legally classified her, as a married woman, as incapacité.
Incapable, a category she legally shared with.
With children and the medically insane.
It's unbelievable. So she's winning a Nobel Prize, but she's not even a full legal person. Could she sign a contract?
Not without her husband's permission. The law essentially said only men were full legal persons. Any intellectual property, the processes for isolating radium, legally belonged to Pierre.
So even the Nobel Prize money was technically his.
It was. Legally, it all went to him.
So she has this scientific fame, but total legal invisibility. How on earth did she counter that?
Through this incredibly calculated, strategic self-fashioning. Her decision to write Marie Curie in 1923 wasn't just a biography.
It was a political move.
A highly sophisticated one. It gave her a socially acceptable way to oversee her own legacy, to make sure her version of the story got into the historical record.
And the famous non-patenting decision is the perfect example of this. It's one of those mythological moments in science history.
The selfless choice not to profit from radium, to give it to the world. And she intentionally crafted that narrative.
How so?
If you look at the drafts of her autobiographical notes, you can actually see her wrestling with the language. She was so meticulous.
What was she wrestling with?
She tried versions that would have made her seem passive, like she just followed his view or shared his feeling about not patenting, which, would have reinforced the legal reality that only he could make that choice.
But that's not what she published.
No. In the final version, she chose this very assertive, shared language. She wrote, "My husband, as well as myself, always refused to draw from our discovery any material profit."
As well as myself.
That phrase is everything. She made sure her active moral authority in that decision was documented forever. It was a textual battle against her own legal erasure.
A textual battle, that's a perfect way to put it. And even while she's fighting these legal and public perception battles, she's applying radioactivity to a real battlefield.
Right. Her impact went way beyond the lab. During World War I, she turned her science into direct humanitarian aid.
You're talking about the mobile X-ray units, the little Curies.
The little Curies, they were revolutionary. They brought diagnostics right to the front lines, helping surgeons find shrapnel, locate fractures.
It must have saved so many lives.
Unquestionably. And she wasn't just organizing it. She was hands-on, training people, operating the units herself, right alongside her daughter, Irene.
And that work also laid the groundwork for modern radiotherapy, for using radiation to treat cancer.
It was the very beginning, and that legacy lives on. She founded the Curie Institute in Paris in 1920, another in Warsaw in 1932. There's still major research centers today.
But as we know, that dedication, it came at the ultimate price.
It did. She died in 1934 at 66 from aplastic anemia. It was almost certainly caused by years and years of radiation exposure.
She used to carry samples in her pockets, worked in rooms with no ventilation.
Yes. Her death is often described as a martyrdom to science, and it's an accurate description.
Which brings us back full circle to this astonishing physical reality, the one that connects her past to our present, her lab notebooks.
They are still actively radioactive, not just historically contaminated. Dangerous right now.
Where are they kept?
In lead-lined boxes at the French National Library in Paris. And if you want to see them, you have to wear full protective gear.
So I know you're sitting there wondering, just how radioactive are we talking? What's the actual danger level almost a century later?
Well, it's all tied to the materials. The main culprit is radium-226, the isotope she isolated. It has a half-life of 1,600 years. 1,600 years. That means that over 90% of the radium that got onto those pages is still there, virtually unchanged.
So the clock has barely ticked on this material since she put her pen down.
Precisely. To give you some numbers, measurements have been done. The covers are about 200 becquerels per square centimeter. The whole notebook is around 120,000 becquerels total.
And for most of us who don't think in becquerels, what does that translate to in terms of actual hazard?
The real danger today isn't so much from holding it, it's internal exposure.
Meaning what?
The problem is the loose microscopic radioactive dust particles in the paper. If a researcher leaned in too close without protection, they could actually inhale those particles.
And if they get inside your body?
That's where the damage happens. The alpha particles from radium are heavy and slow. They can't even get through your skin from the outside. But if you inhale the source, it's like putting tiny corrosive bits of shrapnel directly into your lung tissue.
Wow.
And once inside, those particles just continuously bombard the surrounding cells. That's what can lead to cancer, or, like in her case, aplastic anemia. The dangers are locked inside the paper.
It's the ultimate physical manifestation of that instability of historical lives. A construct that is still potent, still actively dangerous 100 years later.
It really is.
So let's wrap this up. We've seen Marie Curie, the political resistor, the groundbreaking scientist, the legally incapable wife. the shrewd self-fashioner.
The humanitarian, and finally the martyr, constantly fighting to define her own legacy against these incredible odds.
And that struggle, it seems, is still completely relevant today.
It is. The challenge she faced, resisting being seen only as a singular exception defined by her gender, that's still a huge issue in STEM. The way we write about and remember scientific achievement still influences who gets to become a Pasteur, a process, and who remains a Curie, a unique person.
The sexing mechanisms of history, as some scholars call it.
Exactly. It's the risk of always seeing a woman as a woman first, a person second, and a catalyst for general observations a distant third.
So what's the big takeaway for us?
Well, I guess the challenge for all of us is this. If we finally grant Marie Curie the same capacity for generalization that we so easily granted to Pasteur, the ability to separate the person from the powerful, world-changing scientific process she represents, what new universal things might we finally be able to see about the modern scientific life itself, regardless of who's living it?
That's something for you to mull over.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.